My name is Evelyn, and I can still see the satisfied expression on Jude's face as he thrusts that paper toward me in the middle of our open office. We all signed this petition to have you removed, he announced with unmistakable pride, his voice carrying across the quiet workspace. Your methods are costing us money. 23 signatures filled that single page. Every analyst, coordinator, and manager in our department except me. The weight of their collective rejection pressed against my chest as colleagues pretended to work while watching my reaction. I took the paper with steady hands, scanned each name I'd greeted with coffee and smiles for 6 months, nodded once, and returned to my desk. I didn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. Instead, I picked up where I'd left off in my customer retention spreadsheet, the numbers blurring slightly as I calculated exactly how I would respond to this betrayal. Before I tell you what happened next, I would like to know if you've ever experienced that moment when everyone turns against you because they don't understand your vision. Because what I'm about to share isn't just about workplace drama. It's about standing alone when you know you're right. 6 months earlier, I had been transferred to lead the struggling analytics division at a mid-sized tech consulting firm. The division had been underperforming for years, stuck in outdated methodologies, while our competitors raced ahead with innovative approaches. When the executive team announced my transfer from product development, I'd been excited for the challenge. We need fresh perspective, imagine, our CEO told me during a private meeting. The division's stagnating and the old guard isn't adapting. You have 9 months to turn it around before we consider restructuring entirely. That first morning, I arrived early, arranged welcome pastries in the break room, and prepared an introduction presentation outlining my background and initial observations. By 9:15, I realized something was wrong. The conference room remained half empty. Jude, the senior analyst who'd expected the leadership position himself, strolled in 20 minutes late with 4 other team members. Sorry, he said, without making eye contact. We had an impromptu strategy meeting about the Eastland project, a meeting I hadn't been invited to, about our largest client. I smiled anyway. Perfect timing. I was just about to discuss my preliminary review of our current methodologies. Jude leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. We've refined these processes over a decade. They're industry standard. Industry standard 5 years ago. I corrected gently. Data analytics has evolved significantly since then. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Rowan, a data scientist who'd been with the company for 12 years, clicked his pen repeatedly. The previous leadership understood our clients' needs. I displayed a comparison chart I'd prepared. Our client retention rate has dropped 14% year-over-year for 3 consecutive years. Meanwhile, acquisition costs have increased by 23%. I paused, letting the numbers speak for themselves. Something needs to change. That afternoon, I found my office door had lost its nameplate. The next day, my login credentials mysteriously reset. Small things, annoying, but not worth confronting anyone about. I focused instead on analyzing our processes and developing a comprehensive overhaul strategy. By week 2, I understood the fundamental problem. The division operated on quick-fix solutions that looked good in short-term reports but ultimately failed to address underlying client needs. They prioritized immediate metrics over sustainable growth. During my 3rd team meeting, I introduced my vision. We need to prioritize deep data mining over surface analytics. This Means additional training hours for everyone and temporarily slowing our processes to rebuild them properly. Lyra, one of the few analysts who seemed receptive to new ideas, raised her hand. Won't that affect our quarterly numbers? Initially, yes, I acknowledged. But by quarter 3, we should see significant improvements that outweigh the temporary dip. Jude snorted. So, you want us to sacrifice our performance bonuses for some theoretical future gain? I want us to stop putting band-aids on broken processes, I replied. The executive team understands this will require investment. After the meeting, whispers followed me down the hallway. When I entered the break room, conversations stopped abruptly. Emails circulated without including me. Documents I needed mysteriously went missing. I began documenting everything, keeping meticulous records of every email, meeting, and decision. I stayed late reviewing client histories, identifying patterns everyone else had missed. While they resisted my methods publicly, I noticed how they began implementing some of my suggestions with slight modifications, then taking credit during management reviews. The first monthly review was tense. Our numbers had indeed dipped as predicted. Jude seemed almost gleeful, presenting the downward trend without the context I'd provided in my preliminary reports. The new leadership approach is clearly not working, he concluded, looking directly at Bennett, our CFO. I waited until he finished before responding. As outlined in my implementation plan, we expected a temporary performance decrease while rebuilding our core analytics framework. However, our early indicators show client engagement up 12% where we've applied the new methodology. Bennett frowned. We need more than engagement. We need revenue. Revenue follows engagement with a 2-month lag, I explained. I've included the predictive models in my report. The following week, I discovered someone had altered my presentation slides before the management review. Key data points had been changed, making my projections appear overly optimistic. When I mentioned this to Imagigen, she seemed concerned but distracted. Politics, she sighed. Navigate it carefully, Evelyn. You were brought in because you see things differently, but change is always met with resistance. 3 months in, I introduced my most ambitious proposal yet. A radical new customer retention strategy that required significant upfront investment, but promised to dramatically improve our client relationships and long-term profitability. This is financial suicide, Jude declared during the division meeting. We can't afford to rebuild our entire client interaction framework mid-year. We can't afford not to, I countered. Our competitors are already implementing similar approaches. The opposition intensified after that meeting. Crucial emails went unanswered. I was accidentally excluded from strategy sessions. Someone replaced the data in my demonstration model with corrupted information the night before my presentation to potential clients, forcing me to rebuild everything from memory while appearing completely composed. Despite the obstacles, I began implementing pieces of my vision with the few team members who remained open-minded. LRA proved particularly valuable, often staying late to help analyze results. They're scared, she told me one evening as we reviewed client feedback. Your approach threatens everything they've built there. Reputation's on. I'm not trying to discredit anyone, I said. I just want us to succeed. Success looks different to different people, she replied. For them, it's maintaining the status quo where they're comfortable experts. Your success means admitting they've been doing it wrong. The whispers grew louder. Twice, I walked into the break room to find Jude and Rowan huddled with other team members. Conversations abruptly shifting when I appeared. Performance reviews became increasingly critical, focusing on the temporary metrics decline while ignoring positive trend indicators. 4 months in, I received an email from a client complimenting our refreshing new approach to their data challenges. I forwarded it to the team, hoping to demonstrate the value of our changes. The next day, Rowan presented a modified version of my retention strategy during the team meeting, conveniently omitting that the core concepts came from my original proposal. This hybrid approach maintains our proven methodologies while incorporating select new elements, he explained, avoiding my gaze. I said nothing, instead documenting how they'd essentially repackaged my ideas with superficial changes. The pattern continued, public criticism of my leadership, followed by private adoption of my strategies, carefully disguised as team innovations. 5 months into my tenure, the halfway point before Imagine's deadline, our numbers began to show subtle improvements. Client feedback scores increased and early retention metrics showed promising trends. Rather than acknowledging these positive indicators, Jude focused on how we still lagged behind other divisions in raw quarterly projections. I continued my work methodically, meticulously tracking every metric and outcome. Late nights, weekends. I even worked through the spring holiday while others took time off, slowly implementing my vision piece by piece. I built a comprehensive case study demonstrating the effectiveness of our new approach with our 5 largest clients. Then came the morning of the petition. I'd arrived early as usual, preparing for our weekly team meeting. Jude walked in with Rowan and 5 others, approaching my desk with that paper in hand and triumph in his eyes. We all signed this petition to have you removed, he announced loud enough for everyone to hear. Your methods are costing us money. I scanned the document, recognizing all 23 signatures. Every person in our department except me. Many wouldn't meet my eyes when I looked up. Others watched with barely concealed satisfaction. Thank you for sharing your concerns, I said calmly, handing the petition back. I'll be sure to address this with leadership. For the next 3 weeks, I endured knowing that everyone around me had formally requested my removal. Yet, I continued building my case, finalizing my comprehensive report for the upcoming quarterly meeting where all division heads would present their results to the executive team. The night before the meeting, I stayed until midnight, quadruple checking every figure and projection. The data told a story even I found surprising. Our early indicators had underestimated the positive impact of our changes. The new methodology had created exponential rather than linear improvements once it reached critical implementation thresholds. The morning of the quarterly meeting arrived with a strange calm. I wore a deep green dress I'd purchased specifically for this moment, professional yet distinctive. The boardroom filled with division heads and senior executives. Jude and Rowan attended as senior analysts, sitting as far from me as possible. Bennett, our CFO, began the presentations. Division after division reported modest gains, 8% here, 12% there. Solid, predictable results. Throughout these presentations, I noticed Jude watching me with barely concealed satisfaction, clearly anticipating my professional demise. Finally, Bennett reached our division. Analytics has been implementing significant methodology changes this quarter, he began, his tone neutral. Let's see the results. He displayed our financial results on the projection screen. An audible gasp filled the boardroom. Our division had outperformed all others by 340%. Customer retention had skyrocketed while acquisition costs plummeted. The revenue projection graph showed a sharp upward trajectory unlike anything in the company's recent history. Bennett looked genuinely stunned. These numbers are extraordinary. Evelyn, would you care to explain how your division achieved this? I stood walking to the front of the room with my tablet. 6 months ago, our division was struggling with outdated methodologies and declining client retention. We implemented a comprehensive overhaul focusing on deep data mining, predictive modeling, and client-centered analytics. The initial investment period created temporary performance dips, but as you can see, the long-term benefits have begun materializing ahead of schedule. The room remained silent as I detailed the specific changes and their impacts. Jude's expression transformed from smugness to disbelief to something approaching panic. Rowan studied his hands intensely. As I concluded, Imagigen, our CEO, held up a familiar piece of paper. Before we move on, I'd like to address something brought to my attention. Apparently, there was a petition circulated to remove Evelyn from her leadership position. Her voice was measured but carried unmistakable disappointment. Who authorized this petition? 23 faces turned ashen. No one spoke. I see. Imagigen continued after a painful silence. Evelyn, my apologies. It seems some of your team failed to appreciate your vision. The results speak for themselves. I nodded acknowledgement, maintaining my professional composure while Jude stared fixedly at the table. Bennett cleared his throat. Given these exceptional results, I propose an immediate budget increase for the analytics division to further implement these innovations. The meeting continued, but the dynamic had fundamentally shifted. I was no longer the outsider making unpopular changes. I was the visionary who had dramatically outperformed expectations. Afterward, Imogen asked me to stay behind. Impressive work, especially given the obvious resistance you faced. She smiled. We have several options to discuss regarding your future here. 2 days later, the executive team presented me with my choice of promotion paths. I could take an executive position, overseeing multiple divisions with significant salary increases and bonuses. I could remain leading analytics with expanded authority and resources, or I could create and lead a new cross-departmental innovation team with complete autonomy to select my own members. Most expected me to choose the executive track, the corner office, the prestige, the validation. Instead, I requested to create the innovation team. Are you certain? Bennett asked clearly surprised. The executive position offers considerably higher compensation. I'm certain, I replied. The innovation team will allow me to implement transformative approaches across the entire company, not just one segment. Imagen studied me thoughtfully. And you want full authority to select your team members? Yes, I confirmed. The right people will be essential to our success. My request was approved the following day. The email announcement went company-wide detailing my new role and the formation of the innovation team. The message included one key sentence. Team members will be personally selected by Evelyn based on demonstrated capabilities and potential. That afternoon, a knock on my new office door revealed Jude looking uncomfortable but determined. Congratulations on your new position, he said stiffly. Thank you, I replied, gesturing for him to sit. What can I do for you? He shifted in his chair. I wanted to explain about the petition. We were concerned about the division's performance metrics. It wasn't personal. I let his words hang in the air for a moment. It felt personal. When my presentation was altered before management review. When crucial emails went unanswered, when I was excluded from client meetings, his gaze dropped. There was resistance to change. Perhaps we acted impulsively. Perhaps I agreed. I studied him for a moment. The innovation team will be implementing methodologies similar to what I introduced in analytics. It will require adaptability, open-mindedness, and collaboration. Hope flickered across his face. I have 12 years of experience in this industry. Experience is valuable when it's applied forward, not backward, I said. I'll be making my selections over the next 2 weeks. Thank you for stopping by. As he left, I returned to my list of potential team members. I had approached this decision methodically, reviewing performance records, adaptability metrics, and collaboration patterns. Some names surprised even me. The next morning, I sent my first invitation email to LRA, who had shown genuine openness to new ideas despite pressure from her peers. Her acceptance came within minutes. Over the following days, I conducted individual meetings with every person who had signed the petition. To each, I said essentially the same thing. I'm building something extraordinary. Despite our past differences, I've observed capabilities in you that could contribute to this vision. Would you like to join me? Some, like Rowan, refused immediately out of pride. I prefer to remain in my current role where my expertise is established, he said stiffly. Others hesitated, suspicious of my motives. Why would you want me on your team after I signed that petition? Asked Tessa, a talented data visualizer. Because you're exceptionally skilled at translating complex data into accessible visuals, I replied honestly. And because I don't build teams based on personal grievances. By the end of 2 weeks, I had extended offers to 14 of the 23 petition signers. 8 accepted, joining LRA on what was quickly becoming the most talked about team in the company. Those who declined watched with increasing unease as my selective recruitment continued across other divisions, bringing in bright minds who hadn't been part of the petition drama. Jude was the last person I approached, 3 days before finalizing my team roster. Have you made your decision? I asked. When he requested a second meeting. He squared his shoulders. I'd like to join your team. My experience would be valuable. Experience alone isn't what I'm looking for, I replied. This team requires humility, adaptability, and genuine collaboration. Everyone will rotate through different roles regardless of seniority. There are no special titles or privileges. Are you prepared for that? His expression tightened momentarily before he nodded. I believe I am. Then welcome aboard, I said, extending my hand. We start Monday. That first Monday revealed exactly what my former opponents had signed up for. I had transformed a large storage area into an open workspace with modular furniture, digital displays, and collaborative stations. No corner offices, no hierarchy reinforcing layouts. As team members arrived, they found their names on temporary desk assignments that would rotate weekly. Today, we establish our operating principles. I explained once everyone had settled. The innovation team exists to develop transformative approaches that can be implemented company-wide. We answer directly to the executive committee, but our success metrics differ from traditional divisions. I displayed our charter on the main screen. Will be evaluated on implementation effectiveness, cross-divisional collaboration, and long-term impact metrics, not quarterly numbers. Jude raised his hand. So, there's no immediate performance pressure. Quite the opposite, I corrected. There's intense performance pressure, but not the kind you're accustomed to. We need to demonstrate value through innovation that traditional metrics don't capture initially. That first week tested everyone. I instituted a first principles approach requiring team members to question every assumption behind existing company processes. Those who had resisted my methods and analytics discovered why my approach had succeeded beneath the surface level. Changes lay a fundamentally different way of understanding client needs and business value. LRA thrived immediately, often leading discussion groups with infectious enthusiasm. Others struggled with the lack of hierarchy and established procedures. Jude particularly seemed to expect special treatment that never materialized. By week 3, clear patterns emerged. Those who embraced the new methodology began developing genuinely innovative approaches. Those who resisted found themselves increasingly isolated in discussions. I neither punished the resistant nor rewarded the adaptable. I simply created a transparent environment where results spoke for themselves. Midway through our second month, we presented our first major innovation to the executive committee, a client engagement framework that integrated predictive analytics with customized service delivery. The potential impact on client retention and revenue growth stunned the executives. This is remarkable, Imagine said, reviewing the projection models. How quickly can this be implemented? We've designed it for phased implementation, I explained. The first module can roll out next month with minimal disruption. Bennett studied the financial projections. These numbers seem almost too optimistic. They're conservative, actually, I replied. We've adjusted for implementation variables and adoption resistance. As we left the boardroom, Jude caught up to me in the hallway. That went well, he said, walking alongside me. The executive committee clearly appreciates our work. Our work, I emphasized, not any individuals. The framework succeeded because it integrated multiple perspectives. He hesitated before continuing. I've been thinking about the analytics division. Our approach there was short-sighted. I stopped walking to face him directly. Why do you think that happened? His gaze dropped momentarily. We were comfortable. Change threatened our expertise. It was easier to reject your ideas than adapt our thinking. And now I understand what you were trying to accomplish, he admitted. Your methods weren't just different. They were better. I nodded acknowledgement, but said nothing more. As we returned to our workspace, his realization was meaningful, but I wasn't seeking apologies. I wanted transformed thinking. Over the following months, our innovation team produced one breakthrough after another. Each success amplified our influence within the company. Traditional divisions began requesting our input on their strategic initiatives. Our team members became sought-after internal consultants. Those who had joined me from analytics flourished in ways they hadn't imagined possible. LRA developed a client prediction model that became standard company practice. Tessa created visualization tools that transformed how we communicated complex data to non-technical stakeholders. Even Jude, despite his initial resistance, eventually contributed valuable refinements to our implementation. Methodologies. Meanwhile, those who had declined my offer watched their careers stagnate. The analytics division continued implementing my original vision under new leadership. But those who had most vocally opposed me found themselves passed over for advancement opportunities. Not through any direct action on my part, their resistance to innovation had simply marked them as unwilling to adapt. In a company now embracing change, Rowan requested a meeting 6 months after the innovation team formed. I welcomed him into the glass-walled conference room where our team's successes were displayed in real-time metrics on digital dashboards. "Impressive operation you've built," he said, his tone careful as he glanced around. "Thank you. What can I help you with?" He cleared his throat. "I've been considering a change in direction professionally. My position in analytics has become limited." "How so?" I asked, though I knew exactly what he meant. "The division has changed significantly. New methodologies, new leadership approaches." He shifted uncomfortably. "The skills that once made me valuable seem less relevant now." I nodded. "Evolution is inevitable in any industry. Adaptation is a choice." I was wondering if there might be opportunities within your team, he finally said. "I recognize I declined initially, but perhaps there's a role where my experience could be valuable." I studied him thoughtfully. The innovation team is fully staffed currently. However, we're establishing satellite groups in each division to help implement our frameworks. They require the same mindset we cultivate here: adaptability, collaboration, and forward thinking. Hope flickered across his face. I believe I could contribute in that capacity. Applications open next week, I said. I'd encourage you to apply through the standard process. Each candidate is evaluated on demonstrated capabilities, not past history. He nodded stiffly, clearly having expected a more direct invitation. I appreciate your consideration. As our innovation team's influence grew, so did interest in our methodologies from outside the company. Industry publications requested interviews. Competitors began mimicking our approaches. By our 1-year anniversary, we had transformed not just internal processes, but how the entire company positioned itself in the market. During our annual review, Imagigen presented the financial impact of our innovations: a 42% increase in client retention, 28% growth in new business acquisition, and a remarkable 63% improvement in implementation efficiency across all divisions. The board has approved an expansion of your team and budget, she announced. You've created something truly transformative, Evelyn. After the meeting, Bennett pulled me aside. Several board members have suggested creating an executive vice president position to oversee innovation company-wide. You'd be the obvious choice. I appreciate the consideration, I replied. But I believe I'm most effective leading from within the innovation process, not above it. He studied me curiously. Most people would jump at such an opportunity. I'm not interested in titles, I explained. I'm interested in impact. That evening, as I reviewed applications for our satellite teams, I reflected on how completely the company culture had transformed in 18 months. The resistance I'd encountered initially had given way to widespread enthusiasm for innovation. The petition that once threatened my career had become a distant memory, though I kept a copy in my desk drawer as a reminder of how dramatically things could change. Among the applications was Rowan's. Meticulously prepared and surprisingly humble in tone. He had completed 3 of our innovation methodology courses. Voluntary training sessions we offered company-wide. His personal statement acknowledged his initial resistance to change and detailed what he had learned since. I approved his application for the analytics satellite team where he would work under LRA's leadership. A reversal that wasn't lost on either of them. 2 years after I first entered the struggling analytics division, our company had become an industry leader in innovative client solutions. Our stock price had doubled. Employee satisfaction scores reached record highs. The innovation team approach had spread throughout the organization, creating a culture where adaptability was valued above tradition. I began receiving offers from other companies, increasingly generous packages to replicate our success elsewhere. While flattering, none captured my interest until a venture capital firm approached with a different proposition. "We're not looking to hire you," explained Naomi, the firm's founding partner. "We want to fund you, your own company built around your innovation methodologies from the ground up." The proposition was compelling, complete freedom to create an organization that embodied my vision from its foundation rather than transforming an existing structure. After careful consideration, I agreed to meet with their full partnership team. 3 months of discussions and planning followed. I shared my intentions with Imagigen long before making any final decisions. "I expected this day would come," she said with a sad smile. "You've outgrown us." "It's not about outgrowing," I corrected. "It's about creating something designed for innovation from its inception rather than retrofitting existing systems." "The board will make a counter offer," she warned. "They'll match whatever compensation package you've been offered." "It's not about money," I assured her. "It's about building something without the constraints of established patterns." When I finally announced my decision to launch my own company, the reaction was mixed. The executive team expressed genuine regret, while immediately beginning succession planning. My innovation team members showed both support and concern about their own futures. "What happens to the team when you leave?" Tessa asked during our group discussion. "That depends on each of you," I replied. "The innovation structure we've built will continue. Each of you has opportunities here. The foundation we've created isn't dependent on any single person." What I didn't share immediately was my longer-term vision. Once my new company established itself, I planned to build a team that reflected the collaborative, adaptive culture we'd created. I would need experienced innovators who understood my methodology. 2 weeks before my departure, I began individual conversations with select team members. To each, I said essentially the same thing. "I'm building something extraordinary from the ground up. Your capabilities would be valuable in this new venture. There's a place for you when you're ready, but no pressure to leave immediately." I made no mass announcement, no general recruitment effort. Each conversation was private, based on specific qualities and potential I'd observed over our time working together. On my final day, the company hosted a farewell gathering. Speeches highlighted the transformation I'd led and the legacy I was leaving behind. When it was my turn to speak, I kept my message simple. Innovation isn't about technology or processes, I said. It's about perspective, seeing possibilities where others see only problems. Recognizing that resistance to change often masks fear rather than insight, and understanding that the most powerful impact comes not from forcing your vision on others, but creating an environment where they can discover it for themselves. I looked around the room, meeting the eyes of those who had once signed a petition demanding my removal. Some had become my strongest allies. Others had faded into corporate obscurity, clinging to outdated approaches. Each had chosen their path after I offered the same opportunity. My gratitude goes to everyone who challenged me. I continued, your resistance forced me to refine my vision, strengthen my resolve, and develop more effective ways to implement change. Success is seldom achieved through agreement alone. 6 months later, my new company launched with innovative client solutions that quickly captured market attention. True to my word, I began selective recruitment of my former team members. Lyra joined first, bringing her boundless enthusiasm and creative problem solving. Tessa followed 3 months later, eager to build new visualization systems without legacy constraints. Most surprising to many was Jude's arrival a year into our venture. He had remained at the original company, advancing to lead the expanded innovation team after proving himself among the most adaptable of my former opponents. Why leave now? I asked during his interview. You've achieved the position you originally wanted. Because I've learned that the position matters less than the vision, he replied. What you're building here is the future. I want to be part of that. 5 years after that humiliating day when Jude thrust the petition in my face, 13 former enemies had followed me to my new company. Several had become department heads. Others led specialized teams focused on their unique strengths. Each contributed to our rapidly growing reputation as industry innovators. The ultimate irony, our original company became our biggest client, contracting with us to continue refreshing their innovation practices. During quarterly review meetings, I occasionally found myself in the same boardroom where I'd once defended my unconventional methods. Now, executives from multiple companies gathered to learn our approach. Sometimes during these meetings, I would catch Jude's eye across the table, both of us remembering how differently things might have turned out had I responded to that petition with anger rather than strategic patience. Had I focused on punishing those who opposed me rather than creating opportunities for everyone to succeed. My most vindictive act wasn't firing those who undermined me or publicly humiliating them when proven right. It wasn't even building a competing company that overshadowed my former employer. My revenge was transformation. Turning the people who tried to destroy me into my most loyal advocates by showing them a better version of themselves. On the 5th anniversary of my new company, we held a celebration dinner for all employees. As I looked around at familiar faces, many who had once signed that petition, I realized the true power of responding to rejection with opportunity rather than retaliation. Success is the best revenge, goes the saying. But I discovered something more profound. Success shared with those who once opposed you isn't revenge at all. It's redemption for them and for yourself. The petition that once threatened to end my career now hangs framed in my office, not as a reminder of betrayal, but as evidence that the darkest professional moments can become catalysts for extraordinary growth when you refuse to let others define your worth. Have you ever faced opposition that seemed designed to destroy your confidence? Did you fight back directly or find another path forward? I'd love to hear how you handled your own professional challenges and what you learned from them. Share your story in the comments below. And if this resonated with you, please subscribe for more authentic professional journeys. Remember that sometimes the people who try to tear you down become the foundation for building something far greater than you imagined possible.